Hey guys, alright, so this is my Kydex sheath making tutorial. I just want to let you guys know there are many ways to do this. This is just a way that I'm doing it. So if you do it a certain way, congratulations, I'm happy for you as long as it works and you're happy with your process. This is just the way I do it, this is the way I've been doing it, and it works for me, it's very successful for me. You don't have to buy all the materials or the tools you see here. Don't run out and buy tons of stuff, just see what works for you. Alright, couple things. There are different types of Kydex, CLX, and all kinds of X's that are out there right now. Kydex was originally a type of malleable plastic that, as any knife maker knows, once you heat it up, you can mold it around your knife, and then once it cools off, it'll retain that shape. That's very important because not only does it have good sheath retention, the knife won't fall out, but it's also waterproof. So if you are going to go into the desert or into the, if you are going to go into the slush or the swamp or something like that, you don't have to worry about it loosening up like a leather sheath or falling apart like one of those Condor sheets or something like that. All right. There are different sizes, there are different types of sizes in Kydex and different colors, okay? Obviously, you can get any type of color, tan, camouflage, black is very prevalent, OD green. And they have a ton of colors and they're coming out with more colors and camouflage every day because a lot of folks realize that Kydex is very, very popular. Some people even use Kydex inside and then line the outside with something nice like leather or tanning skins or something like that. Primarily the reason for the sheath is just so you can retain your knife on your person without cutting or injuring yourself. Okay, that was the idea behind it. It's one of those things that most knife makers don't like to do because they put so much time into knife making that sheaths is like a secondary piece. However, it's extremely necessary to have a good sheath so you don't lose the knife that you spent so much time making. Alright, a couple things on sizes. I always use 1/4 inch. They sell, when I say 1/4 inch, just keep that in mind. Everything's going to be 1/4 inch, from the grommets to the holes to everything that I use 1/4 inch. They do 3/16 and I think 1/8 and 5/16. So if you go up to purchase anything, it's always going to be 1/4 inch. And what I mean by that is if it's 2.500, 250 millimeters or 1/4 is both a 1/4 inch. All right, so keep that in mind. I always buy my stuff at knife kits, okay, and they have a slew of options up there. They always have stuff on sale. You can go to Interstate Plastics is another one if you're trying to buy big sheets of Kydex. Most of the Kydex that I buy always comes in a 1 foot by 24 foot long, okay, and I usually buy the 0.080 sheets, okay, that's what I'm talking about here. All right, I don't know if you can see this. Let me see if I can get a little more light on the subject. All right, so this is the thickness that I buy. All right, you can see it's pretty thick. This is the 0.080. Okay, that's the thickness on the sheet. You could also use 0.096. That's also similar to this size. When I first started using Kydex, I just bought whatever was available. Now this is 0.060. So I just want to give you a notable option there. If you can see that, you can see the size thickness. This is 6, this is 8. 6, 8. Okay. The reason that's important is because when you buy grommets or rivets or whatever you want to call it, there's a size here. Okay, see that size? That size has to go through the Kydex on both sides and then mushroom cap on the other side. And that's something that you see right here. Okay, so if you see, you put the rivet through there or the grommet through there, and then you have to mash it and mushroom it on the other side. The reason that's important is because if you purchased the 1/4 inch rivet or eyelet, whatever you want to call it, and you purchased the 6.0 and tried to put them together, what'll happen is as you're trying to mushroom them, this is going to be too long and you'll have a lot of play inside the sheath. So once you go up to knife kits, you got to understand that everything is going to be symmetrical. So you'll see 0.060 or 0.60. I was just going to say 60 because it's easy. You're going to see 60, and then you're going to see 60 grommets. You're going to see 80 grommets. You're going to see 125 grommets. So as long as you purchase everything the same, your sheets will work correctly. All right, so I hope that kind of made sense. Some of the tools of the trade, as you can see right here. All right, obviously you're gonna have to have your grommets. These are relatively cheap. I always buy them in packs of 100. They go very, very quickly, so buy a couple hundred of those. You're gonna need a good razor knife. You're definitely gonna need a good straight edge. Okay. What I like to do to mark my Kydex is either use a punch. This is a metal punch right here. It's automatic. You don't need to do that. You can buy a scratch awl or something like that, or you can even use a nail, and that'll come in handy later. This is a 1/4 inch drill bit. Okay, this one I bought from Knife Kits again, and as you can see right there, it has a little tip on it. That tip actually points directly to where you punch your holes, and that allows it so it doesn't sway back and forth and you don't get crooked holes. And this one right here is for metal. All right, so there's a huge difference in the tips right there, and that little one right there was it was an awesome drill bit. You can get them up at Knife Kits again. Great piece of gear, great piece of equipment. You can have any type of painter's tape or this type of tape. This works pretty good. You can use duct tape if you want. What this is for is when you're making the sheets, it'll make it a little bit wider, so when you put the sheath in there, or put the knife inside the sheath, it'll give it a little bit of space. I'll show you how to use that. You can use a heat gun. I love using a heat gun because it's fast and it's simple. I know guys that use pizza ovens, guys that use toaster ovens and hot plates, and all those are good options. The problem that I have with those, and I've tried them, is that you might overheat the product and wind up melting it, and if you're not keeping an eye on it, then you're gonna have a big mess. So I just use the heat gun. It takes a little bit longer, but I have a little bit more control. You're gonna have some type of die and press. All right, this one I bought from Amazon. This is specifically made for grommets. Now this is a 1/4 inch bit, top and bottom, and this is what I use to punch stamp my stuff. Now they have a really nice one at Knife Kits. I think it's a 1-ton press, and it does everything for you. It cuts the hole and it puts in the grommets. You just turn the base and everything like that. This one I found on Amazon, and what I liked about it is it didn't only do 1/4 inch. I have all the dies that go all the way up to 1 inch. So if I wanted to make leather or belts or something like that, I could remove these dies and put bigger dies in there. Also, they do sell on Knife Kits the handheld dies. It's just a small anvil, and then you have the punch on top, and then you put it underneath, and then you whack it with a hammer. That makes it a little bit harder because you need 2 hands to do it. This, I just drill the holes, I put all my rivets in, grommets, and just pound it down, and it works great. Okay, you can check that out. Simply Green. This works the best by far to clean light colored Kydex. We work in a shop, there's a lot of dust, there's a lot of dirt, and what happens is your fingerprints get all over this and then it messes it up and it looks filthy. What I usually do is I just go and Simply Green it, let it soak for a little bit, and then wipe it off, and it works great. Do not use don't use acetone, because acetone will make the color change color. It'll change the color of the Kydex. It has a negative reaction to it. Also, what you can use is hot soapy water and a toothbrush. I've used that before to clean this. So you can use a toothbrush, and I think you can use toothpaste. I'm not really sure, but hot soapy water with a toothbrush works good, or Simply Green. Let it on there, let it soak, and just wipe it off. You don't want to use any other type of chemicals because it'll have a reaction, or it will take the black dye off of the grommets. Also, the grommets themselves, they also come in different colors. You can get silver, nickel, gold, brass. That's up to you. With sandpaper, you work with the lower grits first. It's just like anything else with plastic. It's like wood. All right, you get the lower grits to get the rough out, and then you can use the higher grits to sand everything. Okay. Over here you can see I have one of my presses. This again is Knife Kit's press. This is a 12 by 12. It's a decent press. You know, it comes with the chain to hold it down. You should mount this to some type of base because it will try to jump up on you. It's a very simple metal press. It's got some weight on it. I'm not going to go into making presses. I have made my own press, and I'll show you that right here. Okay. This is the first press I ever made. It was basically a couple pieces of plywood and a little bit 1 by stock. You can see right here. It's pretty heavy. What you have to do is you have to get these door frames, door hinges. These are pretty heavy duty door hinges. And as you can see, it's not completely sandwiched together. You have to give it some space in between the two presses to make sure that you can fit the foam in there. Okay. At the bottom, what I did is I engineered some type of legs. You have to put legs on this thing so you can fit the clamps underneath it. All right. Now, when I use this press, I usually use it for my bigger knives. Most of the foam that you can buy it on Texas knife kits, or you can buy it on regular knife kits. This foam will wear out after a while. As you can see, it's pretty beat up. I've used it for quite some time, and it's good. It works great, but it'll get some flat spots in there. And when you first get it, as you can see, you got to put everything in there, put in your knife, clamp it down. And then the clamps that I recommend are these right here. All right, these are Jorgensen. I don't know if you can see that. All right, Jorgensen. These are the 12-inch Jorgensen clamps. I got like 3 or 4 of them. And like I said, the reason that you put legs under here, let's see if I could. The reason you put legs under here is so you can slip this under and slam it down like that. Okay, and then of course you can tighten it. All right, these you can get at Home Depot or any hardware store. Jorgensen, they're pretty good for this type of work. All right, so that's the press that I made. I'm not going to tell you about how to make it. There's a lot of good videos out there, but as you can see, it's very simple construction. Just, you know, 1 foot by 2 foot, get 2 pieces, sandwich them together, screw them, put some legs on it, put some hinges. All right, any person that's decent at carpentry can figure this out. It's really not that hard. And then, like I said, on these, some places they usually sell them in this format. So 2 by 24 is the norm, but if you get them, it depends on how you order. Like when you go to knife kits, you have to read the information, because usually what they'll do is they'll cut it in half and they'll send it to you like that. Tell them not to, and then this way you can have a larger surface for this type of setup. All right. Now that being said, when you first start off with this, you have to decide whether you're going to use a large tech lock, a small tech lock, some type of belt loop, because you want the Kydex sheath to emulate whatever belt attachment you're going to use. All right, that makes sense. When I first started doing this, I only went with this, which is only a cross carry, so you can only carry the sheath that way. All right, so I made a mistake there. You can modify it any way you want after the fact, but it's a little bit harder once the sheaths are already made. Okay, so this one you can see right here was made specifically for the large tech locks. Okay. This one here as well, you can see the large tech lock is already connected to it. Large tech locks seem to be the norm in the industry. They're very easily to get. They're not that expensive. You can buy them on Amazon. You can buy them from my website. But basically, all they do is they have rows and rows. They have 3, 3, 3 all the way across. And you could use this side or this side. Primarily, this is made for belt carry. You can swap it around if it'll fit. But all of that's going to come into play when you decide what you want to do with your knife. Figure out how you want to make it work. Like I said, these are great products, but you have to preemptively think which attachment you're going to use. This is pretty much the norm, and I'll show you how to use that. Alright, first thing we got to do is make sure these blades are clean, free of debris. You don't want anything to stick to it. You can use WD-40, Simply Green, anything just to clean the blade off. These blades have all been heat treated, ready to go. These are the Master Sheaths. I have 6 of them I need to make sheets for. And I'm going to make 2 of the sheets that I was talking about. One is the fold over, one is the sandwich type. You know, this bench gets pretty filthy, as you guys can see. You can put a mat down if you want, but really this is what all I'm doing is just going to put the tape on. Now, with the tape, the reason you put tape on these is to give it a little more girth, okay? What I usually do is use masking tape. Masking tape seems to work best for me because you can decide how many layers you want. For me, layers are usually 3. Now the reason that you put tape on it is to give it that bulkiness. So now when the knife is in the sheath, or when you're forming the sheath, okay, when you're forming it, you're going to have a little bit more bulk instead of 0 on the blade. And that's what's going to stop it from scratching. Okay, Kydex does have a tendency to scratch your blades, especially when the sheath is too tight. Now some guys say, well, if it's a tactical knife, I can't have it rattle and all this other stuff. And that's fine, I understand that. You know, if you don't care about the knife, the sheath scratching the hell out of the blade, and you want that thing super tight, so when you're going over the drop zone, that's absolutely fine. I usually give it 3 on both sides, and then make sure it's pressed, and be careful because these knives are sharpened. And then what I do is I cut off the outline, okay? I only want the outline to be showing. I don't want any extra. Primarily what you want is the Kydex is mostly going to be held on by the handle itself, okay? It's not going to be held on by the blade. The blade is just there to give it a little more strength inside the sheath, but it's the little 1/2 inch to 1 inch up top here that's going to hold the sheath in, and then when you pull it out, that's what you want. That's the one that's going to give you the most strength. All right, so what I do is I clean it up and I just keep going and I prepare all my knives. It's best to do this all in one shot instead of doing one at a time. I find it just works a lot faster if you do all your prep work up front. Okay, you can use painter's blue tape, is actually a lot better than this stuff, but painter's blue tape is super expensive. I don't understand that. It's the same tape, only it's blue, and they charge double the amount, so I just use regular masking tape. Some guys will go the extra mile if they want, you know, if they don't want to use 3, they'll just use duct tape. Duct tape is fine. However, the stickiness on the duct tape has a tendency to stick to the blade itself. And remember, what you're going to do is you are going to heat this up, and all that glue is going to stick to the blade itself, and then you have to worry about getting all the goo and stuff off. So if you are going to do that, I suggest just doing masking tape first and then doing the duct tape, and at least in that way it's a little easier to take off. Alright, so I'm going to get this done and then we'll travel on. So as you can see, I put all of these together right here. Okay, they're all done. What I like to do is leave about 1 inch from the blade to the end of the Kydex. So I leave 1 inch all the way, you know, measure. It doesn't have to be super accurate, just has to be enough, because remember, you're gonna flex this stuff. Also on this side, same thing. Try not to move the knife like I just did, but you know, about 1 inch. Okay, scratch a little mark there, scratch a little mark. Okay, just so I can see it. And then what I do is I take my straight edge. This is where it's important. I'm sorry, my square. It's not a straight edge, it's square. And you want as straight as you possibly can without it moving. Watch your fingers, just score it. Okay, you could score it a couple times. This is not really hard. You don't have to press down and, you know, try to cut through the table. You're just trying to score it. Makes a decent line right there, and then you can follow through with it again. And then what you have to do is bend it, and it breaks. Alright? Then what I usually do is I put another one, just, it's going to be the same exact size. Score it. Score it. Just keep doing it. And one more time. Oops. Okay. And just snap it, and that's it. Now, it's not always going to be completely perfect. It might be a little bit off. That's okay. What's really important here is that you see the shiny side. The shiny side is what goes on the inside. The rough side is on the outside. So if you are going to mark it, make sure you have the rough side on the out. The other thing is, for the bottom one, you're basically figuring out where it's going to wind up inside the sheath. Okay, so you want to have the handle down at least an inch if you can. Okay, have the handle at least an inch inside the sheath itself. Then you can measure up from the bottom. From the bottom here, I got about 2.5 inches, which is fine because I like to leave the bottom for last, depending on how the knife fits together. All right, so what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to use my tech lock. All right. Now it doesn't really matter if you go from the top or from the bottom. You just need to start making little marks. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure, and this is how I do it. I measure from the top or from the bottom, depending, and I just use the tech lock system itself. All right, so I know that basically about 1/4 of an inch in, you know, that's basically where I'm going to be right there. And I count the holes, 1, 2, 3, and I put a little hole at the top. Okay, doesn't mean that's the hole I'm going to make, because I just want a reference point. All right, so at the bottom of this Kydex to the top of the hole, that's 1 hole. That's pretty much too low, but that's okay. I'm just looking for a guideline. Then what I'll do is I'll make sure this is straight again. I'll line up that bottom hole to here. Alright guys, so what I did is, like I said, I just measured from the bottom of the Kydex to the top of the hole and just went all the way around. Okay, what you don't want to do is put a hole or a grommet too close to the handle at first. Leave that alone. Leave at least 2 inches down from the top, because when you do pull the knife out, you need some flex. And if you put a grommet in there, originally, you could always put it in later, but if you put it in too soon, you're never going to be able to get the knife out. And as you can see right here, let's see if that'll show up. There's a hole right there. There's a hole right there. There's a hole right there. Alright, so it's all the way around. Alright, so I didn't touch the top and I didn't touch the bottom. Now what I do is I got some clamps, alright, some Home Depot specials, and I make sure that the outside and the outside are on the outside. And I clamp on this side, I clamp on this side, and then I go to the drill press. Alright, try to keep it as tight as possible, but you want to be able to drill holes in there. Alright guys, there's nothing spectacular about drilling holes into plastic. It's very simple. You just have to line up the holes. Like I said, this is that special drill bit. It's called a Kydex drill bit. You can get it on knife kits. Works really well. You just want to make sure that when you do drill, everything's tight and you go all the way through, because now you're going through both sides, and as you can see, it has a tendency to stick to the drill bit. Just make sure that you're hitting it right, and you try not to get the you don't want to have crooked holes. Sometimes the stuff will get stuck in between. You can see that there. You can clean that out afterwards. Now once I have 3 or 4 in there, what I'll do is I'll actually set a grommet. Alright, with the grommets, what I like to do is just clear away some of the hole, some of the debris with the knife, and just clear it away a little bit. You'll find if you screw this up, what'll happen is the grommets won't fit correctly. They'll go in on an angle, or they just won't fit, and what you might have to do is re-drill it, or you might have to start over. One of the most important things though is to make sure that you put them all in the same way. Okay, as you can see, once you peel them over, they'll be thinner on one side and fatter on the other. Okay, so you want to make sure that when you put them in, you put them all in at the same time. One thing I wanted to mention is you can see that I'm only using the first and second hole on these. Okay, you can drill the third hole in the center if you want. It will give you more flexibility to use different holes or to use different sizes, as you can see. So I'm using this hole and this hole. I'm sorry if you could see that. I'm using this one and this one. and I'm corresponding it with that. Okay, if you use the center hole, you can do that as well, but now you're using a lot more grommets. So again, it's really up to you as to how many holes you want to put. You know, some guys do all 3. I just do the 2 at the end. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to true up the sides, the edge, the top. Now understand, this is dealing with plastic, and plastic does have a tendency to get hot and goo up, and then when you touch it, you will burn yourself. So you have to be very careful. I usually use a razor knife, or just wait till it cools and then pick it off. You'll get used to it eventually. I'm using the belt grinder. This is a 60 weight belt. You don't have to worry about, you know, don't use 35. Anything higher grit than 60 is fine. 60, 80, 100 to do your rough stuff. And then when you get a little bit finer, you can use hand sanding, or you can use the 220. So that's all I'm going to do, is just put it at a low speed. This makes it a lot quicker for me. Okay, so lastly what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure for the bottom cord. Now I usually use this one because it's pretty symmetrical. All I got to do is just 2 holes there, and it's not a big deal. I kind of line it up where I want it, probably as close as I can get it, centered. Like I said, this is all, you know, hand math. I'm just doing it by eye, doing it by hand. There are probably better ways of doing it. But for me, like I said, I'm just trying to make a sheath here and get these products out, and as long as the knife fits and it's clean and it's safe, then I'm pretty happy with it. There are guys that make a living doing this stuff. That is not me. Oh, and please don't ask me to make any sheets for anybody. That's not part of my business. I barely want to do it for myself, so please don't ask me for that. So I just did, again, like I said, sort of all, I just lined it up pretty straight. Look at it, look at the knife, see if it's straight, and then I'm going to drill the holes like you saw before and put 2 grommet holes in. Okay, so now that the grommet holes are in, you can see that I'm placing the knife. I'm trying to see which way fits better. I usually don't put these into the last because, like I said, I want to make sure that, you know, everything fits. I might flip it around at the last minute. Maybe I want a little bit more at the top, depending on where I'm going with this. So it really depends. Sometimes the holes, like this one, is a little bit crooked. This one should have been down a little bit more. So I'll put it down at the end so it's less noticeable. These are all the little tricks that you're going to find. Now you see I have this square here. I have an option. I can go on a 45 degree. I can round it off. You know, I can cut it this way, round it off. I like to do a lot of the preliminary stuff first, and then this way it's cleaner and it's easier to work with after the fact. You can see here on this one, it's rounded off. Okay, you can see here on this one, it has a little bit of a square or a little bit of an angle on it. You know, some people call these boat paddles because they look like a paddle. Some people, you know, just, it's really up to you. The reason that you put these 2 holes at the bottom is for, is to tie it or lash it to your leg, or to tie it to a pack. Okay, it has a bottom holding. What I'll do next is I'll put a nail at the bottom, and I'll show you how to do that just in a minute. I'm going to cut these off and Alright, so all I did was I cleaned it up, I rounded off, I put it on the sander. Again, this is usually my style. It's a little bit half round with square on the bottom. You can go all the way around, you can go sharp angles, it's completely up to you. You know, the design is also up to you, okay? Also, I forgot to mention, if you are going to put some type of pouch on here, you also have to drill the holes for the pouch. There are some pouches out there that are already preset for a couple Kydex manufacturers like SE and such like that. So if you wanted to, you have to pre-think, you know, think about that. Also, if you're going to do any type of latching, if you wanted to put something over it, or you're going to have to, you know, this is the thinking phase, all right? You can do it afterwards, but it's going to be a little bit harder, so this is when you do it. One of the options that I do is I make a drip hole. You don't have to make a drip hole. I don't do it on all my knives. Every now and then I do it, but it's not necessary. The idea behind a drip hole is if your knife is in here and it gets wet and the water gets in, instead of it sitting on the blade or inside the sheath rusting the knife, you have a drip hole and the water will flow right through. It's really good for river crossings and stuff like that. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a drip hole with just a basic everyday ordinary nail. You can use bigger, anything round or you know, anything would work. So if you want to put an Allen key in there, you can put an Allen key. I mean, anything big enough that the water will flow through is fine. I find a nail works the best. Now notice this is a pretty decent sheath. I should use my 2x24, but I'm going to use the small one right here, basically because it's available and it's right here, and I'm probably going to have to do this in stages. Nobody gets this right the first time, alright? So I just want to let you guys know. What I will do on this is I'm going to spray it with a little bit WD-40 so it'll slide in and out of the sheath a little bit easier. There is a tendency that this will stick because I am heating this up. I use an everyday, you know, this is the Wagner's heat gun. So I'm going to heat this up as much as possible. I got everything prepared, so I have my press ready to go. I'm going to heat this up all one side, then the next side, and then try to slip everything in. Try to readjust everything there for you. Alright, so at this point you can see the Kydex is starting to get a little bit malleable. Just want to go a little bit past, and if your hands are sensitive to heat or plastic or whatever, you know, this is where you might want to get some good gloves on, some clean gloves. You'll see like these little rubber pieces to start, that's from the shavings. Also, what's important about this is you want to make sure that the way you angled your knife or the sheath is going to only fit one way from now on. So it's going to be a proprietary sheath, whether it's right side or left side, shouldn't matter if you did all the holes correct. That's why you have two sets of holes, one on one side, one on the other side. You can switch to tech lock and turn the tech lock and the knife all the way around and wear it on both sides. That's why it's really convenient to use this type of sheath system and the tech lock. So you can see it's really nice, really malleable. Alright, that's going to be my front. So I'll hit it again, and what I'll do is I'll put this in here, right, just about where I want it, and then I'll continue heating. And what that's doing is that's heating up the metal inside. I find that when you heat up the metal inside the plastic, it gives it another thermal heat, and what it actually helps the process of forming the sheath. Alright. See, my knife's like almost all the way down by the end. Like I said, I don't always get this right the first time. If I do, it would be amazing. You know, try to get some heat inside there. Make sure it's as straight as possible, because sometimes these have a tendency to move and then you have a crooked sheath. Also, be aware of this tip. It's super hot. You will burn yourself, and you will burn anything else that it comes in contact with. So now what I'm going to try to do is heat this up at the end, and you'll see the rubber move. And then this is where you can put in, let's see, oops, it's hot. This is where you put in that piece right there. You don't want to disturb the knife, but that's going to be your drip hole. Okay? Give it a nice heat, flip it around, make sure it's straight, heat up the nail a little bit. Now this is almost ready, so I'm going to heat up this back. Like I said, it's a tedious job with the hand heater, but it's what I use. Heat it up. So as I was waiting for this to cool off, I went ahead and made another sheath. This is out of Kydex. Again, you know, when you're making these sheets, you know, I would have been already 3 or 4 done if I didn't already have to film all this, but you know, it's beneficial to keep the assembly line moving. Alright, so alright, so a little, oh, that was the rubber. Alright. Alright, so as you can see there, All right, it's a little bit awkward. I don't think the drip hole went all the way through, so I'll have to readjust that. You can see right there, see the nail? It didn't go all the way through. All right, and this is the stuff that you run into. You run into little problems like this, and the fact of the matter is I got to heat this up again, make sure the nail goes all the way through this time, maybe flatten it out a little bit more, and then work all the way through. All right, but what I'm going to do on this one is I'm going to bring it over to the big one now. This way I can show you how the big one works. It's a lot better than this little tiny one. All right, so what I like about this press, it gives me a lot more room to maneuver, and it's a lot flatter, so I have a lot more surface space. The only problem with this is you got to have some hand strength and you got to have some tough hands, because you're constantly working with clamps, and then after a while you're going to get some blisters too if your hands aren't strong enough or used to it. And then what I do is I clamp both sides really tightly, I mean to the point where I can't turn these suckers anymore. And then again, I might have to heat this up, might have to work with it a little bit, adjust it, change it, and do it again. And that's for the rest of the 6 knives. I'm actually going to make some more sheets while I'm waiting, because like I said, you know, when you're trying to do production, you got to constantly work. So let me get on with a couple more extra sheets, get them prepped, and I'll let this one wait. And here's a nice little trick. I already made one sheath that we're waiting for, so now I know these holes are all good. Instead of constantly trying to readjust these holes on every single sheet that I make, I just cut out the same size, line it up, punch my holes, and then just keep going that way. So I don't have to remeasure anything. Alright, so basically the easiest way to get these off is just take a hammer and hit the release button. You might have to oil these up a little bit. Okay, much better. Much better. You can see the actual definition in that. All right, you can see that the drip hole went all the way through to one side. All right, although it's a little bit too pronounced, I don't think it'll be a problem, especially if it works the way it's supposed to work. The handle itself is actually pretty decently sized right there. See how it's kind of in there, really nice and tight. I'll probably clean this up a little bit. I'll push this down a little bit. I'll heat it up. It's very simple. You just heat it up and you could still work with it. Alright, good retention. Now what I do is with this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to round the edges and I'm going to sand it. Alright, so what I'm going to do is, as you can see, it's all formed up, but it's a little square, a little bit. And what happens is the plastic stretches, so when it stretches it moves it in different ways, so now you got to shore it up again on the sander. Again, any belt sander will work. What usually winds up happening though is a lot of the dust and debris gets inside here, and then what happens, there it goes, it gets inside here, and then what happens there is that's where all the dust and scratch. So what I like to do is fill this cavity up as much as possible with tissue or tape or anything like that, just to alleviate that as much as possible. You're still going to get some in there, but again, that's where the hose comes in. So this is a 180 belt, 180 grit belt. Like I said, I'm hiring the grit because now I want to get more of a finished look. Alright, so it's really important to get all that glue residue off, because that glue residue will stick to anything that's inside the sheath. Once you clean it up, just give it a little bit of spray of WD-40 so it slips in and out really nice. Okay. It's not going anywhere. Alright, so that's it. That's how you make a pancake style sheath. These sheets, like I said, if you are really interested, you could put any type of connection, belt connection to these things. You can do them in any color. You can cut out this little design here to give you a little bit more pull. You're not always going to get it right the first time around, so I would suggest, practice. You might have to do a little bit of cleaning up, around the handle area. Again, this is just, this is the Simply Green. Simply Green works great, guys. One thing I wanted to cover is they do sell Kydex with this paper, or I should say some type of material that's already laminated or glued onto the Kydex itself. That's how they get those camouflage patterns. This is a carbon fiber pattern. As you can see on the back, it's regular Kydex. So if you ever get this, don't feel that there's any other processes. It's the same exact process. The only difference is you do have some type of material on it, and you might have to mark it differently. When I was working with it, my little punch hole won't show up. Okay, so it won't show up on it. But if I do mark it with a Sharpie, you can see the Sharpie. All right, so that's just something to, figure out, as you're working with it. Something you should know about those sheets, though, they do tend to wear out. So if you are working with it and plying with them and working with them a little bit, you'll start seeing that some of the material might come off. All right, and of course, over wear of time, it will come off. But usually the under backing, this is Desert Camo Digital, the backing on it is dark brown. So even if it does wear off, it's still in its camouflage pattern. Sometimes, guys, it's a little necessary to manipulate the plastic. So what I do is I just heat it up. Make sure you have gloves on when you do this. And it's usually these parts up at the top that become a little bit troublesome. Sometimes when you put heat on it, it automatically closes up. But then sometimes you gotta do a little pinch here and there, tighten it up, use your fingers. Once it cools off, it'll hold its shape. So you might have to hold it for a couple seconds, which means that your fingertips can get really hot. So just make sure that you are, have some type of protective gloves on when you're doing this. Just to finish up some of the sheets, what I'll do is I'll take one of these sponge sanding blocks and just sand around the edges, give it a little bit of a smooth texture. I know a lot of guys use heat. Sometimes they'll use heat, and what the heat will do is give it like a waxy, glossy finish. And that's fine too. You could do it that way. I've never done it that way. I'm afraid that I'm going to split open the seams that I just created. But the sanding block seems to be the best for me. You could use sandpaper or anything like that. Alright, guys, so there you go. I went ahead and made the rest of the sheets, and you can see they're all a little bit different. I did that on purpose. They're all the same knife. They're all the Master Chief. But depending on what kind of, where you're going to wear it, how you're going to wear it, it all depends on the sheath you're going to make. I make them all differently because I don't like to be stifled artistically. So I'll just go over them real quick. This is a Coyote Brown, and you can see I made it round right here. And sometimes you'll see like a rivet here and then one that's right next to it. And you can see on this one, the reason that's there is because I want to make it tighter. Alright, that's another trick right there. If you want to make the sheets tight, if you put the rivet up here, you'll never get the knife out. So on some of the new modern sheets, you can see there's a slide right here. I don't have those slides. I don't manufacture those. I wish I could, but I'm not a big manufacturing company. I just have it inside my shop. Same thing with the green, with the camouflage, the desert camouflage. You can see there's two at the bottom here. Now these are going to correspond with the tech locks, but there might be one or two that are misplaced, or that looks misplaced. And again, that's either for tightness or for a specific reason. This one was created for a leg lanyard. All right, this one is a fold over sheath. Okay, you can see it's already folded over. I didn't film this because this is going to be a separate part, but again, you can see right here what I did with the high ridge. Okay, you see with the high ridge here, everything's being held on by the handle. All right, it's a misconception that the blade inside there is going to hold on to this. It's not. It's the handle part, it's the ricasso, and it's the choil. Okay, again, nice black sheath. All right, this one's actually sold. I got to clean this one up a little bit, but you can see these three right here are for tech locks. 1, 2, 3. This one is for tightness. On this side, it's all tech lock. Okay, so I just want to make sure you guys understand that. Again, this is just a straight top, but again, I fluted it a little bit. On this sheath right here, what I did is a 45-degree angle. You can see that. This is what's commonly referred to as the boat paddle. I don't know, because it looks like a boat paddle. All right. Honestly, it never bothered me. I like this because it gives you more options. If you have a wider sheath, you can put a bigger survival kit on here. All right, so that's something to think about. Again, if you had the survival kits, it won't fit on these little sheets, but it might fit on these bigger sheets. Also, if you needed more webbing, this gives you a little bit more option. If you wanted to carry it instead of on your belt, you could carry it on your ruck or something like that. And on this one, I did a bottleneck. Okay, you can see the bottleneck up there. All right, same design. It's a little bit wider. The bottleneck works fine. Great sheath. Now, some guys are always worried about, you know, I hear rattle, I do this, I do that. Look, you can't have both worlds. Basically, the way it works is, if it rattles a little bit in the sheath, that means that it's not scratching the knife, okay? So it's a little bit, you want a little bit of both, but you don't want too much of a good thing. This one is tight as all hell. This is never going to come out, but it will scratch up the knife, as you can see there. All right, so what I got to do is try to adjust it a little bit as much as possible. But again, if that's not really a concern of yours, then that's fine. There's no rattle in here, none whatsoever. So the idea is to try to get the best of both worlds. It's not always easy, it's not always possible. If you want a really tight sheath, then it probably will scratch your blade. If you want a sheath that is a you know, that you want to preserve your blade, then you might have a little rattle in there. If you're not a tactical guy, and if you're not running around trying to take out enemies with your knives, which most people are not, then a little bit of rattle is not going to bother you that much. I understand that there are some hunters that are concerned about that, but what I always say is, well, if you're a hunter and you hear this in the woods, then isn't that going to chase the deer away anyway? So honestly, what I would do, if you are a hunter, you might want to look at getting a leather sheath or maybe a nylon sheath, which I also have. So Kydex might not be for you. Just a couple tidbits. Like I said, you don't necessarily have to get tech locks, although all the tech locks fit up on these right now because, as I showed you, I measured them. You could also do some cross latching with 550 cord. As you can see here, I made belt loops and then I interweave it all the way down to a nice leg wrap if you're interested in that. Okay, so there's many ways to attach this to your belt. All these knives are for sale except for the black one. It's already sold. If you guys are interested, you can go up on the website, the Master Chief. I have plenty of them. These are going to be sold as is, and then I have more that I could make and I will be making. So I hope you enjoyed this vid. I hope you appreciate the videos. This is going to go under the knife making tutorial list, and I appreciate your support. Go up to 3riverblades.com. Thank you.